I had everything a man could want. Money, power, success. My name, Ryan Anderson, was synonymous with those things. I had worked hard, sacrificed relationships, and pushed my limits to build a legacy. But as I stood at the top of my empire, I realized I was staring down at an empty life. It wasn't the kind of emptiness that could be filled with money or fame. It was a deeper kind of void. A void I hadn't noticed until now, until Megan called me. Her name flashed across my phone one evening, and my heart nearly stopped. I hadn't heard from her in years. Not a single word, not a single message. The last time we spoke, I'd told her it was over. I had walked away. I had made my choice. But now, seeing her name again, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything I had built meant nothing without her. I couldn't bring myself to answer immediately. My thumb hovered over the screen for what felt like an eternity. It was like I was back in time, back to when everything with her felt real and important. But I had let it go. I had let her go. I had let my family go. Finally, I tapped the screen. "Megan," I said, my voice hoarse. "Ryan." Her voice was soft but clear, carrying an edge I didn't recognize. "I need your help." My chest tightened. This wasn't like her. Megan had always been fiercely independent, refusing help from anyone, especially me. She'd always been strong, resilient, but now she needed me. What had changed? "Anything," I said before I could stop myself, heart racing. "What happened?" There was a pause on the other end. "It's Leo," she finally said. "I need you." I didn't know who else to turn to. He's struggling, Ryan. He needs his father. And I can't do this alone anymore." Her words hit me like a freight train. I had known about Leo. She had told me when she was pregnant, but I had chosen my career over everything else. I had told myself that I wasn't ready to be a father, that I couldn't balance my life with a family. I had made excuses, one after another. Now, hearing her voice crack, it felt like the past had come crashing into the present. Leo, my son. I had never even met him. "I'm coming," I said quickly. "Where are you?" She gave me the address, and I hung up. I didn't think about it for another second. The guilt, the regret, the pain, it all rushed back at once, and I knew that I couldn't wait any longer. I had to see them. I had to see my son. The drive felt longer than it should have. I sped through the streets, my hands gripping the steering wheel tighter with each passing minute. I had everything: money, status, respect, but none of that meant a damn thing now. I had never felt so useless, so insignificant in my entire life. I had failed. I had failed my family, my son. And now, I was heading toward them, uncertain of what I could do to make things right. What could I do after all these years? I had no idea, but I had to try. I reached her apartment building in record time. My heart was pounding in my chest, a mixture of nerves and anticipation. I parked the car and rushed up to the door, my mind racing. When Megan opened the door, I froze. She looked the same: strong, composed, beautiful, but there was something different about her. Her eyes, once full of warmth, were guarded. She wasn't the woman I remembered. She had been through something, and I couldn't blame her for it. I had caused it. "You came," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. There was no warmth, no relief in her tone, just acknowledgement. "I had to," I replied, my voice thick with guilt. "Megan, I don't." She cut me off before I could finish. "I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear your apologies, Ryan. I don't need them. What I need is for you to be here for Leo. He needs you." Her words hit me harder than anything I had imagined. I had been selfish. I had thought only of myself, of my work, of my success. I had let her down. I had let my son down. "I'm here," I said, stepping closer, my voice steady but full of emotion. "I'm here for him. I'm here for both of you. I don't know how to fix everything, but I'll do whatever it takes." Megan looked at me, her eyes narrowing slightly as if searching for sincerity in my words. "I don't know if I can trust you again," she said, her voice quiet. "But Leo, he's my son, Ryan, and he needs you. You're his father. You owe him this." I nodded, feeling the weight of her words pressing down on me. "I'll be here for him, Megan. I promise." Her eyes softened, just a little, but she didn't say anything else. She stepped aside to let me in. I walked into the apartment, the familiar scent of her perfume still lingering in the air. It was as if no time had passed, but everything had changed. I had a son. I had a responsibility, and I had to make up for the years I had wasted. Leo was in his room, sitting quietly, playing with his toys. When I walked in, he looked up at me, his eyes wide. He was still a child, but I could see the wariness in his gaze, as if he didn't know who I was or why I was here. "Hey, buddy," I said softly, kneeling down to his level. "I'm your dad, Ryan." He didn't say anything at first, just stared at me. There was no recognition in his eyes. There was only uncertainty. I didn't know how to break through the wall he had built up. I didn't know how to reach him, but I knew I had to try. "I know I've missed a lot," I said, my voice gentle. "But I want to be here now. I want to get to know you." He looked at me for a moment longer, and then he slowly stood up, walked over to the corner of the room, and picked up a small toy spaceship. He handed it to me without a word. I took it from him, my heart swelling at the small gesture. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I was his father, and I was going to show him, show both of them, that I was going to be here for the long haul. Later that evening, as I left Megan's apartment, I couldn't stop thinking about Leo, the way he had looked at me, the way he had silently accepted me into his life. Even just for a moment, it was everything I could have hoped for. But I knew that wasn't enough. I had to keep proving myself. I had to keep showing up, every single day, until Leo knew that I wasn't going anywhere. As I drove back to my penthouse, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Megan. "We'll talk more tomorrow. About Leo, about everything." I didn't respond immediately. I didn't want to rush her. I knew it was going to take time. But for the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something real. I wasn't sure where it would lead, but I was ready to find out. The days following my first encounter with Leo were a strange mixture of hope and guilt. I was trying to be the father I should have been from the start, but every step I took felt like it wasn't enough. Megan had given me a small opening, a crack in the door, and now it was up to me to prove I could walk through it. The challenge wasn't just to show up for Leo. It was to prove to Megan that I wasn't the same man who had abandoned them both. She wasn't going to give me a free pass, and I didn't expect her to. She was still hurt, still angry, and I had to earn my place back in their lives. Spending time with Leo was both a gift and a reminder of what I had missed. The first few days were awkward. He was polite, but distant, as if he didn't know what to make of me. And why should he? I had been a stranger to him for the first 9 years of his life. His eyes would occasionally flicker with recognition, as if trying to figure out if I was really his father or just someone pretending to be. At first he didn't speak much, but slowly I noticed him starting to open up, just a little. We started small, playing video games, kicking a soccer ball around, and taking walks in the park. The conversations were simple, basic, but it felt like we were both trying to find common ground. Sometimes, when I watched him, I caught myself wondering how much of him was shaped by Megan and how much of him was mine. It was hard to tell. I had missed so much, and it stung. Every time I looked at him, I saw the years of my absence. But I couldn't dwell on that. I had to focus on the present. I had to focus on being here now. After a week of spending time with Leo, I started feeling like maybe, just maybe, I was making progress. He smiled more often when I was around, and his walls, though still up, seemed to be coming down slowly. But Megan remained cautious. She had agreed to let me be involved in Leo's life, but that didn't mean she trusted me. I couldn't blame her. I had walked away from her once, and I had left her to do everything on her own. She had raised Leo alone, and I had no right to expect her to welcome me back with open arms. She wasn't about to make the same mistake again. I knew it would take time, probably more time than I had, but I was committed to proving myself. One evening, after a long day of work, I found myself standing in front of Megan's apartment again. This time, I wasn't just dropping off Leo. I was here for something more. It had been a few days since our last conversation, and I felt like we needed to talk again. I had tried to keep my distance, respecting her boundaries, but I couldn't keep pretending like everything was fine between us. We needed to clear the air, to address the elephant in the room, the tension between us. When she opened the door, I could see it immediately in her eyes, guarded, distant. She had every right to be that way, but I wasn't about to back down. Not now, hey, I said, my voice calm but firm. Can we talk? She hesitated, then nodded, stepping aside to let me in. She didn't say anything right away, but I could feel the weight of her silence. We sat down at the kitchen table, the space between us feeling vast even though we were only a few feet apart. I know you're still not sure about me, I began, breaking the silence. I get it. I don't expect you to trust me overnight. But I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, Megan. I want to be part of Leo's life. I want to be the father he deserves, and I want to show you that I can be someone you can rely on, too. She stared at me for a long time, her gaze unwavering. I couldn't read her expression. Was she hearing me, or was she just waiting for me to finish? It was hard to tell. She had been through so much, and I didn't expect her to believe me just because I said the right things. You think you can just come in here and make everything okay? Megan asked, her voice low but firm. Do you think Leo is just going to accept you because you're his father? You don't know what he's been through. You don't know how hard I've worked to make sure he's okay without you. I know I don't, I said quietly, but I want to. I want to make it right, even if it takes time. I know I've been absent, and I can't change that. But I can show you I'm here now. I can show you that I won't walk away again. She looked at me for a long moment, her face softening slightly. But there was still so much pain in her eyes. I'm not asking for you to fix everything, Ryan, she said. I just need to know you're serious. You've hurt me before. You can't just waltz in here and expect everything to be fine. I know, I said, my voice thick with emotion. But I am serious. I won't let you down again. For a moment, Megan didn't respond. Then she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I'll let you try, Ryan. For Leo's sake. But don't expect me to just forgive you. Don't expect me to let you back in just like that. I nodded, my heart racing. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I had a chance. At least a chance to prove myself. The next few weeks were a mixture of small victories and setbacks. I spent more time with Leo, helping him with his homework, playing soccer in the park, taking him to his little league games. I could see him softening toward me, little by little. But Megan remained cautious, watching me from the sidelines. I understood. She had to protect Leo. I wasn't just earning Leo's trust. I was also trying to earn hers. There were moments when I felt like I was getting through to them. A smile from Leo, a laugh at one of my jokes, the occasional thanks, Dad, that still made my heart skip a beat. But then there were moments when I could see the uncertainty in Megan's eyes. The lingering distrust. It was a slow process, but it was a process I was committed to. One evening, a few weeks after that conversation, I found myself sitting in my penthouse, looking out over the city. The view was stunning, but it didn't feel like home. The emptiness of my life, without Megan and Leo, had become painfully clear. I had spent so much time building my career, chasing success. But now I realized that all the money and power in the world couldn't fill the void left by the family I had lost. Just as I was lost in thought, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Megan. Double quotes. Leo wants to see you tomorrow. He's been asking about you. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for. It wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't an apology. It was just Leo wanting to see me, to spend time with me. And it was the first real sign that maybe, just maybe, I was doing something right. I quickly texted back, I'll be there. Tomorrow was another chance. Another step forward. And this time, I wouldn't waste it. The weeks that followed were a blur of action and reflection. I spent as much time as I could with Leo, trying to make up for the years I had missed. I tried to be there for him, not just as his father, but as a constant presence in his life, something I should have been all along. The progress, while slow, was steady. Leo had begun to open up more. We started talking about his favorite things, his school projects, the kids he played soccer with, and, sometimes, his feelings. I could see glimpses of the boy I had missed. his laughter, his curiosity, it all felt so natural. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't ignore the weight that hung over me. Megan was still hesitant. I could see it in her eyes every time I spoke to her, every time I looked at her. She wasn't fully trusting me, not yet. She was holding back, and I understood why. I had walked away once, and I wasn't going to expect her to forget that. She had spent years raising Leo on her own, and it wasn't something that could be undone with a few weeks of good behavior. But that didn't stop me from trying. Every single day, I showed up. I made myself present. For Leo, for Megan. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to feel the strain of it all. The guilt. The weight of my past actions. Every time I looked at Leo, I felt it. Every time I tried to talk to Megan, I felt like she was still waiting for me to fail. She wasn't cruel, but there was no warmth between us. There was no tenderness in her eyes, not like there used to be. I couldn't blame her. I had been the one to destroy it all. I didn't know when I started to think about Megan more than just as Leo's mother. It wasn't a sudden thing. It wasn't a spark of passion that reignited after years of being extinguished. It was more like a slow realization. Every time she spoke to me, every time she stood in front of me, I realized just how much I missed her. How much I had taken for granted. I had thrown away the only woman who ever truly understood me, the only person who had ever stood by me, and now I had to live with the consequences. I never asked her for anything. I knew better than that. But there were nights when I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if things could ever go back to the way they were. Could we be a family again? Could I ever make it right with her? The thought of never having her back in my life, of only seeing her through the lens of a co-parent, was something I wasn't ready to accept. But I didn't know how to get past the walls she had built. How could I prove to her that I had changed, that I wasn't just doing this for my son? How could I show her that I had learned from my mistakes? One evening, after a particularly long day of trying to connect with Leo, getting him to talk about his day at school, getting him to finally finish his homework, I found myself standing outside Megan's apartment again. It had become a ritual of sorts. I'd drop Leo off, say goodbye, then walk away, wondering if Megan was going to open up to me, if she was going to say something. Anything that would let me know that there was hope. That evening, however, something was different. As I stood outside her door, I heard her voice inside, faintly. I knocked twice. When she opened the door, her eyes were different. They weren't as cold, not as guarded. She didn't smile, but there was a subtle shift in her demeanor. She stepped aside to let me in without saying anything. That in itself was progress, even if I didn't know what it meant yet. We sat down on the couch, and I waited for her to speak. She didn't look at me right away, instead focusing on her hands. I didn't want to push her, but the silence between us felt suffocating. Finally, she spoke. "Ryan," she started, her voice low, "I've been thinking." I felt my chest tighten. What was she thinking? Was she ready to shut me out again, or was she finally willing to acknowledge the small steps I had made? "I've been watching you," she continued, still not looking at me. "Watching you with Leo, and I see the effort. I see the change. I see that you're trying." Her voice cracked slightly, and for a moment, I thought she might say something else, something more. "I'm not saying I trust you." "Not yet," she said, her voice firmer now, "but I see you trying. And that matters to me. It matters for Leo." My heart raced. She was giving me a chance, not for me, but for Leo. She wasn't forgiving me yet, but she was acknowledging that I was trying. It was the first step. "I won't let you down," I said, my voice steady with conviction. "I'll keep trying, Megan. I'll keep showing up. For Leo, for both of you." She finally looked up at me, her eyes searching mine. I saw something in her eyes that I hadn't seen before, something like hope, maybe a flicker of it. But it was fleeting. She quickly looked away, clearing her throat. "I hope you can," she said softly. "I really do, Ryan." Over the next few weeks, things didn't magically get better. Megan was still cautious, still hesitant, but I felt a subtle shift between us. She allowed me to be more involved in Leo's life. I started picking him up from school more often, taking him to soccer practice, even helping him with his homework. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Small steps, but they were enough to keep me going. Leo started warming up to me too. He still wasn't the easiest kid to connect with. His walls were still up, and every time I tried to get him to open up, he would shut down. But there were moments, brief moments, when he would smile at me or joke around. I could see the boy I had missed for so long, the one who had been waiting for me to come back. And as for Megan, I couldn't tell if she was beginning to forgive me or if she was just letting me do what I needed to do for Leo's sake. But every now and then, I caught her looking at me differently. It wasn't much, but it was something. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know if I would ever get a second chance with Megan, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to give up. For Leo, for Megan, for the family I had failed to keep together, I had to keep trying. The days felt longer as I continued my effort to rebuild what I had once so carelessly discarded. Spending time with Leo had become the highlight of my days. But the journey to truly reconnect with him wasn't as simple as I had hoped. The walls that Leo had built around himself weren't going to come down overnight. He wasn't a child who just opened up because I said the right words or played the right games. It was a process, a slow burn of trust that I had to cultivate, carefully and patiently. And then there was Megan. I had never fully understood just how deeply I had hurt her until now. I'd spent years convincing myself that leaving her and Leo had been the right decision, that I was doing it for the sake of my future, for the sake of my career. But standing in front of Megan again, seeing the guarded look in her eyes, the walls she had built, I realized how wrong I had been. She had been alone for so long, raising Leo by herself, building a life without me. And I couldn't just walk back into her world like nothing had happened. I knew I had to earn her trust. Every step forward with Leo was a reminder that I couldn't rush this process. Megan needed time, and I needed to prove to her that I wasn't just another empty promise. It was another Saturday when I got the text from Megan. The simplicity of the message made my heart race. It wasn't a grand gesture, it wasn't a breakthrough, but it was an invitation to show that I was still trying. Can you come by tomorrow? Leo has a school project he's working on, and he's been asking about you. I read the message several times before I could bring myself to respond. I hadn't expected this. There were no signs, no indication that Megan was ready for me to be involved in Leo's life like this. I quickly typed a response. Of course. I'll be there. It was just a school project, just another simple task, but for me, it felt like a chance. A chance to be part of their lives again, to show them that I was ready to step up. So, the next day, I went to Megan's apartment, my stomach twisting with nerves, unsure of what I was walking into. When I arrived, Leo was in the living room, spread out on the floor with a bunch of papers, a marker in his hand, and a confused look on his face. He glanced up when I walked in, his eyes wide for a second before quickly averting them. He was still unsure, still processing the fact that I was here. But he didn't send me away, which was progress. Hey buddy, I said softly, crouching down to his level. What's the project about? He hesitated for a moment, glancing at Megan, who was standing nearby, watching us carefully. It wasn't a warm gaze, but it wasn't cold either. She was watching, waiting, making sure I didn't mess this up. It's a history project, Leo muttered. We have to do a report on a famous figure. I don't know who to pick. I smiled, sitting beside him. Well, what do you like? What's something you're really into? He paused, looking at the stack of papers in front of him. I don't know. I guess sports figures, like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant. I nodded. Those are great choices. You know, I could help you with the research. We can make it fun. How about we make a timeline of their careers? You can use different colors and pictures. Leo looked at me for a moment, his expression still hesitant. But then, something shifted. He picked up a sheet of paper and slid it over to me. Okay, yeah. That sounds good. I felt a rush of relief. It wasn't much, but it was progress. Slowly, I could see him warming up to me. Not because I was his father, but because I was there for him present, committed, willing to invest in him. I started helping him gather information for the project, and we spent the next hour discussing Michael Jordan's career, his iconic moments on the court, and the lessons to be learned from his determination. Leo was engaged, his nervousness slipping away as he spoke more about his interests. After the project was done, Megan called us to dinner. The three of us sat at the kitchen table, the conversation flowing more easily than I had expected. Leo was more relaxed, joking about how his project was going to be the best in class. Megan smiled more than she had in weeks. It wasn't the warmth I had been hoping for, but it was a sign of something I hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. When Leo finished eating, he headed to his room, leaving me and Megan alone in the kitchen. She was washing the dishes, her back to me, but I could feel the tension in the air. "You're good with him," she said after a while, her voice soft, almost hesitant. "I can see he's comfortable with you." "That's good." I stood up, moving closer to her. "I'm not going to screw this up again, Megan. I'm here. I'm staying. I don't know how long it's going to take for you to believe me, but I'm not going anywhere. I'll prove it. Day by day." She turned around, looking at me for the first time in a while. Her eyes softened, just a little, but there was still so much doubt in them. I could see it. I could feel it. "I don't know if I can trust you again, Ryan," she said quietly. "I've spent so many years doing this on my own. But I can see you're trying. I'll let you try. For Leo's sake." A surge of emotion ran through me. She wasn't forgiving me, not yet. But she was willing to let me prove myself. She was giving me a chance. Chance I would not waste. "I'll keep proving it, Megan," I said, my voice steady but full of emotion. "I'm here for Leo. I'm here for you. And I'm not leaving." She nodded slowly, her eyes softening just a little more. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was more than I could have hoped for. The road ahead was long, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could fix things. Not with grand gestures, but with consistency. With patience, the following days felt like a slow build. I was present for every school event, every soccer practice. I spent hours helping Leo with his homework, taking him to the park, trying to find any way to bond with him. It wasn't easy. He was still cautious. He still wasn't sure if he could trust me. But with every small step, I saw a change. He laughed more, smiled more. He was slowly letting me in, and Megan. She was still holding back. But I noticed her watching me more closely, paying attention to the way I treated Leo, the way I was there for him. The wall between us wasn't gone, but it was beginning to crack. I knew I couldn't force anything. I couldn't rush her. But I was here, and I would stay. And that, I believed, was a start. The weeks that followed felt like a test. Every moment spent with Leo brought me closer to the father I had promised to become. But with Megan, I was still a stranger, a man haunted by the ghost of his past mistakes. It wasn't as simple as showing up for Ethan. I had to prove to Megan that I wasn't the same man who had walked out on them. And she was making me work for it. Leo and I had found our rhythm. Slowly but surely, we were connecting. I knew I couldn't rush it. The bond we were building was fragile. It wasn't just about playing soccer in the park or working on school projects together. It was about the little things, the moments when Leo would look at me with a small, tentative smile, or when he would call me Dad without hesitation. Those were the moments I lived for, but I also knew they were fleeting. The trust we were building was like sand in the wind, could easily slip through my fingers if I wasn't careful. Every time I spent with Leo, I saw the boy he was becoming. The boy who loved sports, who was fiercely independent, who had a bright future ahead of him. But there was still a part of him that was guarded. He wasn't sure how to love me, how to trust me, because I hadn't been there for him. And no matter how many times I showed up, that guilt lingered in the background, always reminding me of the years I had missed. I couldn't make it right overnight, but I was trying. But Megan, she was still distant, still reserved, still so far away. Every time I saw her, it felt like I was walking on eggshells. She would be polite, but there was nothing more than that. She was watching me closely, but she was also waiting for me to slip up, to fail her again. I didn't blame her for that. She had every right to be cautious. I had abandoned her. I had abandoned them both. We hadn't had a real conversation in weeks, and every time I tried to talk to her, I felt the walls she had built around herself grow taller. I couldn't break through them. Not yet, but I couldn't give up. Not now. Not after everything I had done. It was one Saturday afternoon when I got a message from Megan. I had been waiting for this moment, but I didn't know how to prepare myself for it. The message was simple. Can we talk? My heart skipped a beat. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I didn't know what she wanted to talk about. Was it about Leo? Was it about me? Or was it just a formality? Whatever it was, I knew it was time to face the consequences of my past decisions head on. I texted her back quickly, of course. When she replied almost immediately, "Tonight." After dinner, I took a deep breath. Tonight, I had no idea what was coming, but I knew I had to be ready for whatever it was. I couldn't let my guard down now. I had worked too hard to get this far. That evening, I showed up at Megan's apartment on time. As usual, I knocked and waited for her to open the door. This time, when she answered, she seemed different. There was something in her eyes, a softness I hadn't seen before, but there was still wariness, still caution. "Ryan," she said, her voice steady, "come in." I followed her inside, and we sat down at the small kitchen table. The tension was palpable. Neither of us spoke for a while. I could feel my heartbeat pounding in my chest as I waited for her to break the silence. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "I've been thinking a lot lately. About us. About Leo, and about everything that's happened." I nodded, my throat tight. "I know I've made a mess of things. I know I don't deserve a second chance. But I'm trying, Megan. I'm trying to be the father Leo needs. I'm trying to be someone you can rely on. I'm not going to walk away again." She looked at me, her gaze intense. "I see you trying. I really do. But trying isn't enough. You left us, Ryan. You didn't just leave me. You left Leo. You weren't there for him when he needed you the most. And I don't know if I can just forget that." "I don't expect you to," I said, my voice steady. "I don't expect forgiveness right away. I don't expect you to trust me immediately. But I want you to know, I'm here, Megan. I'm here for Leo, and I'm here for you, if you'll let me." There was a long pause, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. She wanted to believe me. I could see it in the way she looked at me. But there was also the part of her that was afraid. Afraid of being hurt again. Afraid of trusting me when I had proven I didn't deserve it. "I'm not asking for you to let me back into your life just because I want it, Ryan," Megan said, her voice softer now. "But I can see you're doing the work. I can see that you're trying to be there for Leo, and that matters. For him, I'm willing to give you the chance to prove yourself." I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but it was quickly replaced by the weight of the responsibility I was now carrying. I had to prove myself, not just to her, but to Leo. This wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be quick. But it was a chance. A chance I couldn't let slip away. "I'll prove it to you," I said, my voice full of determination. "I'll show you that I'm not going anywhere. And I'll be the father Leo deserves. I will do whatever it takes." Megan nodded, her eyes never leaving mine. "We'll see, Ryan, we'll see." The next few weeks passed in a blur. I continued to spend as much time as I could with Leo. Every moment I had with him was precious. But the more I tried, the more I realized how deeply I had hurt him. Every time he called me Dad, I could see the hesitance in his eyes. It wasn't just me he was unsure of. It was the idea of me as his father. The idea of a father who had abandoned him, who had missed out on everything that mattered. But I wasn't giving up. I kept showing up. I kept trying. I spent every moment I could with him, and slowly, the walls he had built began to come down. He started to trust me, to let me in, just a little at a time. And as for Meg, I didn't know where we stood. There were moments when I thought she was softening, when I saw a glimmer of the woman I once knew, the woman I still loved. But then there were moments when she would pull back, when I could see the pain in her eyes, the scars from the past that hadn't healed yet. I knew it was going to take time, but I was willing to wait. I had already lost so much. I wasn't about to lose the chance to make things right. It was late one evening when I found myself standing outside Megan's apartment again. I had just dropped off Leo after a weekend spent together playing basketball, getting ice cream, talking about his dreams of becoming a pro player, and the moment I left him at the door, the weight of my past actions came crashing down once more. Every day felt like a small victory with Leo. Every laugh, every game, every conversation, it all reminded me of what I had missed. But with Megan, it wasn't that easy. She was still distant, still guarded. It felt like every time we spoke, there was a new layer of distrust I had to chip away at. I couldn't blame her. She had been through too much to just let me waltz back into her life. But I had to try. I had no choice. As I stood outside the door, I realized that I had been hoping for something more. Maybe it was because Leo was beginning to accept me again, or because I wanted to feel like I was part of a family again. But even though I had gotten closer to Leo, Megan was still the one I needed to reach, the one I had to prove myself to the most. The text from Megan came unexpectedly. "Ryan, can we talk tomorrow?" About Leo. I stared at the message for a moment, wondering if I had read it right. She hadn't said much in the past few days. Everything had been polite but distant. This felt different. She wanted to talk, and I had no idea what it was about, but I wasn't about to turn down the opportunity. I immediately replied, "Of course. I'll be there." The next day, I showed up at her door, right on time, my heart racing as I knocked. There was no grand speech in my head, no rehearsed lines. I wasn't sure if she was ready to hear me out, or if this was a conversation I'd rather avoid. But I had no choice but to face it. When she opened the door, she didn't say anything at first. Megan's expression was neutral, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, something that wasn't just the usual wariness. She stepped aside and let me in. "Come in," she said, her voice soft but firm. I walked in and sat down on the couch, trying to mask the nervous tension that gripped me. I didn't know if we were going to talk about Leo, our past, or if she just needed to say something that had been building up for a while. Whatever it was, I had to listen. "I've been thinking," she began, her hands clasped together in her lap. "About everything, Ryan. About the way you've been with Leo. About what's been going on between us. I think we need to address the fact that... Well, you're back. You're really trying, and I see that. I do. But I also see that you're doing this for Leo... not me. And I don't know how to feel about that." Her words hit me harder than I expected. Megan had always been honest with me, even when it hurt, and I appreciated that. But what she said made me stop and think. Was I just doing this for Leo? Was I really doing this for myself, for my redemption, for the family I had abandoned? "I understand what you're saying," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't know how this looks to you, and I know that I've been selfish in the past. But I'm not just doing this for Leo. I'm doing this for me, too, Megan. I'm here because I want to make things right. I want to be the man I should have been, the father I should have been." Megan looked at me for a long time, her gaze piercing through me, as if she was searching for some hidden truth I hadn't revealed. I couldn't blame her. She had every right to question my intentions, to question whether I was truly capable of change. "I don't know if I can trust you, Ryan," she said quietly. "I don't know if I can let you back in just like that. It's not just about Leo anymore. It's about me too. You hurt me, and trust is hard to rebuild once it's gone." I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words. "I don't expect you to forgive me, Megan," I said, my voice tight. "I just want the chance to prove that I can be there for you and Leo. I don't want you to just forget the past. But I want to show you that I'm not the same person I was. I'm here for both of you. I'm not going anywhere." Megan didn't say anything for a moment. The silence between us stretched out, thick with everything left unsaid. I could see the struggle in her eyes, the conflict between wanting to believe me and the fear of getting hurt again. Finally, she sighed, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of the decision she was about to make was too much to bear. "I'll give you a chance, Ryan. Not because I believe you've changed overnight, but because I want Leo to have a father. I want him to have the chance to know you. But you have to prove it. Not just with words, but with actions. I can't do this again if it's just for show. You have to show me that you're not just here for a couple of weeks or months, but for the long haul." A rush of relief flooded over me, though I knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. But it was a start, and that was everything. "I will," I said, my voice firm. "I'll show you that I'm here for the long haul. I'm not leaving again." Megan nodded, her eyes softening slightly. "We'll see, Ryan, we'll see." The following days were filled with both hope and frustration. I kept showing up for Leo. I took him to his soccer games, helped him with his homework, and spent time with him just doing the things he enjoyed. It was like we were building a relationship from the ground up, and though it was slow, I could see the change in him. He was warming up to me, letting me in just a little more with every passing day. As for Megan, things were more complicated. She allowed me to spend time with Leo, but she was still keeping her distance. There were moments when she seemed to relax, when I saw her smile or heard her laugh at something I said. But those moments were fleeting, and I knew it wasn't because she had forgiven me. She was just beginning to see that I wasn't going to give up on them. That was progress. But I knew there was still a long way to go. One afternoon, after a particularly exhausting week of work, I found myself staring out the window of my penthouse, watching the sun set over the city. The view was stunning, but it felt hollow. None of this, none of my success meant anything if I didn't have Megan and Leo in my life. I had been so focused on building something big that I forgot to build something real. Now, I was trying to make up for it, piece by piece, hoping I could fix what I had broken. Just as I was lost in my thoughts, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Megan. Double quotes, Leo wants to see you again tomorrow. He's been asking about you. My heart skipped a beat. This was the moment. The moment I had been waiting for. Leo wanted to see me. Not because I asked him, not because I begged him, but because he wanted to. That was everything. I quickly typed back, I'll be there. The next day, I showed up at Megan's apartment, ready to spend more time with Leo. And this time, I wasn't just showing up to prove myself. I was showing up because I didn't want to miss another minute of being his father.